an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The Magicians, Season 4, Episode 12, The Secret Sea. In this episode, it turns out that fucking Plover is still alive. Don't love that. Do love pretty much everything else that's happening. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Jessie for commissioning this episode. Jessie is in the chat. Hello, as is Huggabug and Megan. Welcome. Today was one of those days where I just really love my job because between this, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and the book Unsold that I'm covering, which if you guys haven't read it, so far I am really enjoying it. I just had a nice run of just all shit that I loved and that had particularly good moments today. This episode is a real treat. There is so much happening that I fucking loved. And I am just so distraught that this is the penultimate episode of Season 4. Season 5 is, if I'm not mistaken, currently airing. As far as I have found, there isn't a place for me to access those episodes. So I would love to be able to start that if y'all know where I can find Season 5. I'm currently watching this season on Netflix. It's certainly not there. Let's see. Megan says it's over. Season 5 was the last one. Okay, so I didn't know that the season was over. Huggabug says on the Sci-Fi app. Oh, that's annoying. Is that the only place? I hate that. But I believe the episodes have been commissioned, so I'm going to figure it out. I just really hate if I can only watch something on a device rather than on my television. It should be free with cable. Huggabug, sweetie, I don't do cable. Come on. It's 2020. Y'all who still have cable need to figure out your lives. Who does that anymore unless you're 78 years old? Jessie says, I'm planning it in the Spoil Me group. I will come up with something and message you. Oh, Jessie, thank you. Only the last half of the season is available. That's what I was afraid of. I was like, by the time I'm ready to cover it, I bet I won't be able to get to the first episodes anymore, because that was how Hulu worked. Anyway, we'll get to that when we come for it. It is time to talk about this fucking bonkers ass. They really just decided to go all out this episode. So we start off with poor Julia waking up in the woods and the monster using his ability to slam her backward so that she can't get up in what feels like too reminiscent a moment for her. Poor fucking Julia. I really appreciate later on the Dean apologizing to her, because not letting her into break bills, he feels, and it's not that he's wrong, it's just that it's not directly responsible. It simply led to her being in a position where she would go through what she has gone through. And I never even thought to hold the Dean responsible. I understand why someone might, and I understand his position in feeling responsible, but I just didn't think of it. And so when he apologized, I was taken aback. I really liked that moment. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. She calls to Our Lady Underground, who shows up and is able to hold off the monster for only so long. And basically, she says to Julia, I didn't come here to fix it. I can't. You still have a chance, a choice of what you want to be. And Julie says, you're saying this whole time, me being a human and a god, that was all just a test? I didn't really understand what she meant by that or why that's what she took away from her saying this. She's saying you still have a chance in, I assumed, and I could be wrong about this, if you choose to be a human, he won't use your body. That was how I understood what the Lady Underground was saying. I didn't realize that she was, like, what Julia says, that this was all just a test. I didn't really get that from what she said. Because, she says, you will not fail as long as the decision is yours. Now go. I can only hold him for so long. And just as she says that, this golden light comes up out of this girl's body and goes into Julia's mouth. And Julia raises her eyes and turns to Our Lady Underground and snaps her fingers. And her head snaps to the side and you like hear her neck break and she collapses. And it's really quite a fucking moment because you have seen the monster be able to damage and kill people with the flick of a finger. But when it's a god, it just feels different, you know? It's just a whole other thing. And I want to give a shout out right here. This girl who's playing Julia, and I've said this before, I just feel like she is so much more talented than this show allows her to display. And I don't even mean like the show, it's not their fault. They have honestly given her quite a bit to do. I just think that she has some real potential that like we haven't gotten to see. And her as the monster's sister, it is unnerving. She's really good at feeling like she is a different person. It's not Julia acting different, you know? That's not the vibe you get. You definitely feel not just that she is a different being, but there's a sense of disconnect from the body itself that makes it feel like it is just a suit she's wearing and not like something that she feels is hers. And that is also something that you kind of got from Elliot as well, is this feeling of like the body being very secondary and unimportant and just a kind of shell. I don't know what it is about the way they behave that gets that across. It's this sort of like stillness that doesn't seem to fully experience it. There's very little touching. There's very little sensation to them. There's just this sort of standoffishness with one another and with other people. And it makes them feel very alien. So anyway, when I saw that Julia had been possessed, essentially, I was like, oh God, I feel so bad for her because she has just been through so much. And this is just another kind of rape. Honestly, like somebody taking over your body and making you do whatever, that is a violation. And I don't feel like that comparison is like off, you know, that is, you are not in control of your body and somebody else has decided they are going to do things with it. And it just feels really like unfair that she is being subjected to this again. So we go back to the apartment and Penny is freaking out, talking about how we need to find something, you know, we have to go and handle this. And Margot is very irritated at the fact that she feels like he didn't really seem to give enough of a shit at the danger Elliot was in. But now all of a sudden that Julia's involved, now he wants to take action immediately. And I appreciated that Alice cuts in and is just like, look, we all care about both of them. But based on this formula, we have to hold a god down. And that's going to take such power. We don't have it. Thank you, because I didn't need them to get in an argument about, like, you only care about so-and-so. I don't want it. I'm fine with Margot pointing it out, but I didn't need to spend any more time on it than we did. So they are talking about how they need this huge stash of magic, and we know that there is a reservoir underneath fucking the castle in Fillory. So we're going to be heading there shortly. Meanwhile, back at Breakbills, Todd runs up to the dean and warns him not to go into his office because there are a couple of librarians in there waiting to arrest him. And the dean says, I've been expecting this, and I am glad that I wore this suit today. I love getting to see what his suit can do. It's so James Bondy. But he pulls, like, he checks his cufflink, he checks his tie pin, and I love Todd being like, are you still drunk? Is that what's going on here? One of my favorite moments this episode, and I hate that so many of my favorite little moments have been with Todd, but they have, because honestly, Todd's a delight. He tells Todd, Katie and Zelda are stuck in the poison room and they're running out of time. And Todd goes, oh, shit. Who are they and what does that mean exactly? Guys, I watched this episode on a treadmill at the gym, and more than once I had to like hold back as a laugh that would have like spit all over the like, and I sanitized it after I was done anyway, but I definitely had a few moments of just like, I am about to be such a fucking health hazard. Oh my God. So Todd, he tells him, take this book. There's a chance that, you know, something good can come of this, even with me getting arrested. He picks it up and he changes the cover to Costruzione di Monde, which I don't know what that means. But we find out later that this is a banned book that will be the key to getting them to open up the poison room. So the dean is honestly, I think part of what I liked about this episode is that while things don't go to plan completely, like the dean still winds up properly arrested and whatnot, he makes a really good showing. The dean has had so many moments of being brought low or being a bit of a joke, fucking up. He's had plenty of funny moments, but they have been kind of sad. And it was really nice to get to see him stretch a little bit and do some shit that was genuinely pretty fun. All of our friends, meanwhile, are like walking over to Seafog to try and get his help on the matter. And they get there just in time to see him being led away in handcuffs. We go back into the poison room. And this is when we run into fucking Plover. Yeah, I had completely forgotten about this motherfucker. 100%, 1000% forgot about it. I'm going to just talk about this, right? We're going to do this. Guys. Oh, that's true. Huggabug says now we know why he's so close with his tailor, the dean. That's true, huh? Oh, Megan says you can buy season 5 on Prime. Okay. Thank you, Megan. That is what I shall do. Guys, what I loved so much about this episode was its handling of Plover. I don't know how this is going to go. I may like eat my words on some things, but as of right now, I am so delighted with the various themes that are coming up here. So Plover was put in here by Alice as a means of hoping that he will die. And it turns out he thinks that there's this like moss that's saving him. And we find out in pretty short order that moss was likely doing nothing. And that it's probably this like spell that kept him from aging so that the beast could continue to torture him that has been continuing to keep him healthy. I am a little bit surprised that a spell the beast placed would still hold. I would have thought that if the beast is killed, the spell would dissipate with him. But, there's no particular reason to think that other than the way that's how things tend to work in a lot of stories. In this universe, we've seen spells that kind of stick and stay. So I'm totally willing to accept that. But what I liked with Plover, there's a part later on where Katie's talking about how she and Zelda are definitely going to die. And Zelda really unwillingly confesses that they actually have a treatment for this contamination, which understandably Katie is absolutely furious over, because they could have saved Penny and they didn't do it. And Zelda's stance is that Penny made the choice to go into the poison room knowing that there was huge danger and that it was his decision and he had to deal with the consequences. To which I say, go fuck yourself 1,000 times. Like, don't you dare. And I am fully Team Katie on this. Like, no, guys, you can get it across that there are huge consequences and to never do this again without just sacrificing someone's life. And never mind the fact that he's now working for the library. I don't know. I assume that he is aware now that there's treatment, but I wonder if he even knows that. And Katie is really like, this for her is the cornerstone of her like decision that the fucking library needs to go down. Again, I am not mad at her for that. I really don't have a lot of faith anymore that systems this entrenched can be changed in a significant way. The library is too riddled with people who have a vested interest in things staying the way they are. And it's just kind of impossible to know who those people are. You have to just break it all down and start over again, So I'm like, Katie's point of view here, I just really deeply understand her. And she's so angry and I just love her rage here. Zelda is trying to say it can be reformed, and Plover interrupts and says, as someone who lived through 2 world wars, I can tell you authoritarian regimes, they fall eventually. And he goes on to say, the problem is no one will ever let you change. People always see you for what you've done, never for who you are. So let's talk about this. So at the end of the day, no matter what you try to become, some judgmental blonde bitch always shoves you down a poison well. I love this show letting Plover be a real piece of shit and not apologize at all. Plover doesn't fucking feel bad. He doesn't like anybody talking about what he did. And he seems to think that shame of it being disgust is enough punishment. He is such a fucking white dude. This is that witch hunt cancel culture bullshit. Like, nobody will let you change. They just see you for what you've done, not who you are. Bitch, what you've done is who you are. Those are the same thing. Okay? Can we all just fucking get on that fucking page, please? That is not to say that you can't make up for your mistakes. That is not to say that you can't change and become a better person. That is to say you don't get to walk away from horrific, abusive, evil shit that you did and act like it's in the past. We don't have to talk about that anymore. Fuck you. Oh my God, fuck you so much. I am so sick of people with this fucking attitude. I saw this like really recently. There was a friend of Rashawn's, and like those of you who know Rashawn at all, she was very much into like the hardcore scene and still is to a degree. She doesn't go to shows the same way anymore, but there were a lot of people from that scene that she found out recently are either straight up racist or are the kind of equivocators that are also racist, but like light. They're like diet racist. And somebody that she has been friends with for quite some time, she found out used to be a Nazi, like a straight up skinhead Nazi. And I think he was even a member of the KKK. She had no idea. She'd known this guy for like 2 decades and nobody had ever said a fucking thing. And when she understandably low-key flipped out when she found out, did he say anything approaching, I've learned and I'm doing better? Or no, it was, that was a long time ago. I can't believe you're bringing that up again right now. I can't believe that you would say anything about that to people. Can't you have some respect for the fact that I am doing better now? And that's not, and it was like this sort of outrage that he had playing this victim card over the fact that, and trying to say that because he has learned better, that bringing that up anymore is totally inappropriate. That's the thing, though, about consequences, is you don't get to choose what people remember about you. You don't get to choose what they talk about regarding you. That's part of the consequences. You did some shit that was revolting, and it is a thing you did. You cannot expunge that. You cannot erase that. You can attempt to atone, do better, apologize, constantly prove that you are working to become a better person. And nobody at all is obligated to believe you. Nobody is obligated to accept your apology. Nobody is obligated to give you a medal for growing as a human being. That's your job. They're doing their own thing. And if you're only doing this shit so that other people will give you a cookie, you haven't actually learned any goddamn thing at all. Because what that means is if nobody knew what you had done, you would either still be doing it or you stopped doing it because you felt ashamed of the news getting out somehow. It's like you have to prove that you have actually learned a lesson for me to ever really believe in apology. The best apology is changed behavior. Plover, I haven't seen any changed behavior from you. I have never seen any real apology, any indication that you genuinely understand what you did. There is just a sort of like, there's a sense of him feeling indignation at it being brought up, and also this like resignation whenever it's mentioned that, oh, this again. You ruined a kid's life. You raped him repeatedly. He became a monster because of the pain and trauma you inflicted on him. Sir, you don't have any regrets there? There's no, like, I don't get the impression that he ever has actually apologized. And so this, like, torture that was inflicted on him, I'm like, that hasn't worked. The best torture for somebody like that is to get them to see, genuinely somehow experience what they did to someone else. Because that's the only way people like that learn. There are some folks who just don't have empathy. And until something explicitly happens to them, they won't get it and they won't care. So anyway, Plover throughout this episode is so infuriating, but so perfect. because he is so goddamn smug and happy with himself. Like, even they let him out of the poison room, which honestly, I straight up thought he was lying. He tells them that he has information about the reservoir later on. And I really thought they were going to get him up there and realize that he didn't know shit. And then they were going to have to decide what to do with him. And nobody was going to be willing to just straight up murder him. So they were going to have to imprison him or something. And that still might be what happens, because Lord knows now they got the information out of him. I don't know what they're going to do with him. Send him back out into the world? Like, no. Obviously, this guy would definitely victimize another kid. I don't buy for a second that he is reformed on that front in any way. I think the best thing to do would be to, like, put him into some sort of, like, medical institution where he can get therapy and counseling over why he did what he did. But that shit ain't free. Nobody's paying for that. Anyway, on the flip side of everything with Plover and the fact that he is such trash and is eating this Chinese takeout, delightedly signing fucking the first edition book. Oh, guys. I already gave Julia props for her acting, but I have to take a moment here to compliment Quentin. His acting, when he is seated beside Plover, as Plover is talking about these books, is so, it's so perfect. It's a wonderful mix of pain, excitement, revulsion. Quentin is all of us when we meet someone that we idolized and we now found out is trash. It's that moment of, like, you are still battling with that old sense of devotion that you had to this person, this borderline worship. And that's still there, but it's, like, so quelled by this disgust and horror at knowing what that person really is, and trying to, like, it's something that all of us battle with, especially this day and age when so many more creators out there are being exposed for who they actually are. We lived for so long in a world where people could produce art and very little was known about them personally. And you could enjoy the art as it was in a vacuum and not really know very much about the person, and it was fine. But things are different now. And we find out that it's so much easier to share information, period. And it's so much easier to share information with a huge mass of people at once. And I mean, this is like if I met Roald Dahl, you know, and Roald Dahl is, like, one of my favorite writers, but he was also, like, virulently anti-Semitic. He was a real, like, it's no good. And it's so painful to know that. When I found that out, I felt like my heart had broken. It was so tragic. And, you know, if you actually got to meet somebody that wrote so many things that meant so much to you, TV shows, or if they were an actor, and you knew this, I mean, I feel like this actor got across, Quentin, got across that mystifying mishmash of emotions really well. And the moment when Plover signs his book and you see him kind of want to reach out and stop him, and then he doesn't, and then you, like, there's a series of, like, vibes I get where it's like I see him want to stop him, then he doesn't, then he feels bad that he didn't, then there's a flash of excitement that he signed his first edition, and then he's like, oh my god, that's disgusting, I can't believe I have this asshole signature in my fucking book. And it's just like a moment of him wanting to divorce Plover from the work. He wants to have his first edition unsullied by this psycho, except that he wrote it, you know? So whether he signs it or not, it's his work. You're not getting away from that. And poor fucking Quentin, like, he just doesn't know how to manage how he's feeling. And I'm not blaming him for that, man. That is a lot of shit. So then this all comes to a head when we find out that, like, the way to get the cure for the curse on the reservoir water is for them to grow a flower in this garden that only grows when somebody feels genuine love for Fillory. And poor Quentin, I loved Penny being like, are we all going to die because Quentin can't get it up for Fillory? But, like, guys, this is all of our conundrum, is what do you do with work that you loved, and now it's tainted, and it's not what you thought. And with Quentin, it's even worse, because it's bad enough to find out that the author of books that you were obsessed with, sheer obsession, that he was a pedophile and a rapist and an abuser. That's bad enough. But it turns out the land that this man wrote about is real, and it's awful. In a lot of ways, it's awful. There's parts of it that are great and wondrous and imaginative and really cool. A lot of it is terrible. And Quentin asks a really good question, which is, what happens when you get exactly what you want and it's not enough? It turns out to not be, it's not just that it's not what I thought, because that's its own thing. But just like, it's not enough. This isn't, I got what I wanted, and I thought getting it would do something. I thought it would give my life meaning. I thought it would make me feel like I belonged somewhere. I thought it would give me a sense of self. And it turns out that's not what happened. And I hinged everything on that. And I didn't get it. And, his acting in this scene and his frustration, like, it must have been a difficult scene, because it's so much of it is just a monologue and him being angry at a bunch of plants. But I really liked I liked him struggling with this, because it is such a specific, weird problem to have. He gets told, first of all, by Alice, because he's like mad about the fact that when him and Plover were talking, Plover told him that several things he wrote about weren't real, or were like obviously tall tales told to him by the kids that didn't really happen. They were so exaggerated and ridiculous. And one of them was this thing called the cozy horse, which was like this horse that was supposed to be like 100 feet high or something. As she leaves, Alice tells him that she saw the cozy horse, and it is real, and it was big enough to build a house on. And I liked that moment, because it's like a little hint that everything that he believed isn't trash. There's little things here and there. It's just, as you get older and you learn how large that percentage, the ratio of trash to not trash is, learning to make do with that tiny fraction, it wears you down, man, and it's just one of those things. The thing that I keep in mind, and I wrote a Facebook post about this way back, I think in 2016, after the election. And I try to keep this in mind. It can feel like the dark is overwhelming. Everything that is weighing down, it can just seem like so much in comparison to this tiny little trickle of good news, not even necessarily good news, maybe just like okay news, that you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do with myself? And the comparison that I make is, if you are standing in a room where you cannot see because it is so dark, imagine standing in that room and you light one candle. And it's just one. It's not turning a light on. It's not doing anything enormous. But you light one candle. How much of a difference does that one candle make? Even though the entire rest of the room is still dark, that still changes everything. It still makes everything feel different. You have 4 candles, and the ratio of light in that room to dark is still enormous. But light is more powerful. It is. Dark is easier. It's more common. But it's not as strong. And I think that's something that it helps to keep in mind. It can feel strong. I mean, and I'm not going to try and say that the terrible things that happen are not enormous obstacles. But I think that because we can't save everyone, sometimes we get to thinking that it doesn't make a difference at all. And to a degree, you just have to have faith that doing a little will have a big effect. And you have to be patient about that. And we don't like to be patient, and we don't like to watch people suffer. And that's part of it, is like doing the little that you can do and then stepping back and having to accept you can't do it all. And this moment with Quentin, it made me think of that so much. It's just that sense of overwhelm of wanting so bad to like still believe in a thing, wanting to have faith in a thing, knowing that it's for everybody's good if you still care about the thing, and not being able to do it the same way you genuinely want to, and it's not there. And people are relying on you, or at least it might feel that way. And it just seems really rude that you're at a point where what you do does matter in your life. But you only got to the point that where what you do matters is like dovetailing completely with what you actually believe you can accomplish, which feels really cruel, you know? And so Quentin's like talking to these plants, and he says, if this can't make me happy, what would? Fillory was supposed to mean something. I was supposed to mean something here. And it turns out to be completely random. There's no like rhyme or reason to this, which like fucking amen, dude. Fuck Fillory for being so disappointing. And he starts to walk away, and then he comes back in and he says, maybe I was better off believing that it was fiction. The idea of Fillory is what saved my life. And that moment, to me, was one of the more powerful of like, something can lose its shine. You can be disappointed. That doesn't rob that thing of meaning entirely. And I think a lot of people felt this way regarding J.K. Rowling basically being like, yeah, I'm a TERF. And feeling like, I believed in this world as an escape, as he puts it, this promise of an escape. You could go somewhere and be a different person from everyone else, and that would be okay. And finding out that like the author of the books that promised you somewhere you belonged does not believe in you. But that doesn't mean it's not still true. And there are millions of people out there who have taken ownership in their way of this thing and made it a place that is safe. And that's sort of where Quentin winds up going in this. Like, people like me can somehow find an escape, and maybe the idea of Fillory, loving the idea of it, there has to be some power in just that. And I like that a lot. You know, that it doesn't have to be perfect. Fillory doesn't have to be this fantasy land where you go and you be king and everything is amazing. You can strive for a thing, though. And you can appreciate that something meant a lot to you and helped pull you out of a bad place. Even if there are problematic aspects now, that by no means takes away from what it still means in your life. It's hard to keep in mind, and it's not something that I think like always works. I think that, you know, if somebody can't separate art from artist, or they can't see hope, I'm not mad at them for that. Like, that's something that comes and goes for me too, you know? But in the end, giving up just does seem like it's not an option for me. So I try and tell myself what I need to tell myself. And that's kind of like Quentin's moment here of sort of willing that Fillory's, like, the concept of it be enough. I liked that it's sort of like the plant responds to him demanding that be enough. It's not even that that he is able to conjure up this devotion. He isn't able to simply love Fillory all of a sudden again and get back into that headspace. He can't. He's learned things you can't unlearn. It's that he sort of like forces it into being, that a mere concept will be enough. And I think that is really powerful. You have to make something work for you, you know, and that takes work and effort that sometimes you just aren't willing to put in, and that's fine. And certain things are not worth it. But this, I don't know. I just thought this was really well done and powerful, and I really, really liked it. And his acting, I thought, was really good. All right, so let's back up to a slightly less emotional topic, which is Josh is a fish now. Oh, God. Guys, can I just say, the fish needs constant eye contact, or else it will begin to fade into white from orange and die. And there's a moment where it starts to just float. Oh my God, I was dying over this. And Fen realizes that Margot is the key here, that Josh is responding to Margot being around and Margot keeping eye contact much more strongly than to her. She says at one point, he bonded with you. He thinks you're his mom. And that was another like almost spit laugh that I had to fucking contain. And she says something like, I've run into that before. She winds up finding a supernatural vet who can see. Did you know your fish is a werewolf? I was dying. And then he looks at Margot. Oh, you are too. Wait, did you fuck this fish? Oh my God. Guys, I could not stop laughing. He comes up with the idea that Margot can pop out her fairy eye and leave it so that it's staring at Josh and do the job of keeping him alive. But Margot is, and guys, I don't know that this was specifically like said, but at one point Penny comes to Margot because it's time to like, you know, go and save our friends. And she says that she can't leave because Josh will die. I thought she could pop that eye out, leave it there, go on her mission and leave her eyeball there and Josh would be fine. But it appears that Josh, like that her eye is connected enough to her body that she can't just like leave. Which I don't know that that was ever specifically said. And that caught me off guard, that because I thought that was the point of her popping out her eye, was that she could leave it and not have to constantly be hovering over Josh anymore. But it does not seem to be the case. So there's a moment where she's really denying that she's in love with Josh. And she's talking to Alice and to Quentin. And Alice says, it really sounds like you are, though. And Margot's like, have you met me? I don't do feelings. And Alice, brilliantly, says, I mean, you can love and care about somebody and still be exactly who you are. You can still be a bitch. And Margot's reaction to that honestly fucking cracked me up, because she just kind of like tilts her head after Alice says that and goes, huh. In this way, like she just never really thought that she could keep being a bitch. It just never occurred to her that that was still an option if she decided that she loved this guy. And that is such a great moment, because I think that people really do get in this sort of headspace where they're like, my personality, my brand. And they don't really like think about, you can still, if that's truly who you are, that will stay, you know, even if you like this other thing. I don't know. I found that really relatable. And it's weird that I find it relatable, because I've never had a problem expressing that I care about a guy, you know, that's never been an issue. But there is a certain amount of like having to be vulnerable. And if you are used to being locked up in a certain way, the concept of being vulnerable will feel like it means something very specific. Like that means that you're going to get drunk on too much wine and cry while you watch The Notebook together. And it's like, that's not what that means, Margot. You can continue to like snark at one another while you actually care about him. Like that's the thing, is that you love people in your own way. Me and Owen expressing the way we care about each other, it's a lot of annoying one another. It's a lot of that. The amount of time that I spend just kind of like poking at Owen and like going, what are you doing? What are you doing now? What are you doing right now? Like, I'm not opening my heart in necessarily the way that you would think, but it's real. It's genuine affection, you know? It's just whatever you want it to be and what you need it to be. So yeah, she's like baking and shit. That's when Penny comes in, is she's baking, because the fish has a very refined palate, which honestly was one of my favorite jokes. And when Penny brings her the pedal, she says something like, you're sure this is going to work? And Penny doesn't answer her because he isn't aware. We see Alice and Quentin eat the petals and they take a drink out of the reservoir and they're fine. But Penny left before he saw that. So he doesn't know for sure. And that was the part that bummed me out the most, is that, like, you know, I guess that one petal, it was supposed to be that Margot eats it and goes and powers up. I thought that she was going to feed it to Josh and then he would, you know, turn back into a human. Could they split it? I don't know how this works. Does that matter? Does the proportion matter? I don't think any of them knows anything, to be perfectly honest. But the episode ends with Josh still being a fish. So, you know, I miss you, Josh. Come back. All right, so let's deal with the fucking library and the whole poison room debacle. So we have Dean Fogg, and he is being handed this uniform before he like goes into prison, and he says, well, this was a new suit. And the guy says, it's a bit loud. And he looks at him and says, yes, and takes his tie pin off and says, it certainly is. And as he clips it onto the guy, the dude disappears. And the dean reaches in and grabs a little drawstring on the inside of his sleeve, and his suit turns gray so that he looks like a librarian, I guess, is the implication there, because the librarians all wear gray. And he begins his mission to get them out of the poison room. They do manage to get out, but first, there's a moment where, what is his name? Eckert? He is informed that she read his book, and he goes into basically Zelda's brain and has a conversation with her about what's going on. Everett. Thank you, Hugabug. So basically what he tells Zelda is that he is trying to become a god for the good of everyone. Oldest story in the book, right? And he even says that like a lot of it is because the gods guard their secrets so closely that the library has no idea what's even going on with them. And he's hoping that by becoming one of them, he can uncover some of the things they've kept secret. I can understand to a point that if you know gods are real and they are not being straightforward with you about what they're capable of or what their weaknesses are, that has to rankle when you are all about like knowledge and having the ability to defend yourself. That would bother me also. However, I do not by any means believe that hoarding magic and becoming a god is necessarily what you are, like a solution, and the only solution at that to finding out what their deal is. And he's like honest about it with Zelda when she says she says, I wish you told me sooner, because, you know, his whole assertion here is that she can take over the library once he like ascends, I guess, and that they will be able to work better to protect the flame of knowledge because there have been things that they don't understand. But now with the two of them working together, they will. And he even points out there's an unkillable god on the loose as we speak. And she's like, oh, so you are going to take his power? And he says he has the power to destroy everything, and all we have are books. If we want to face that kind of threat, we need power too. Now, again, yeah, you do. I'm not arguing that this is a necessary, like, power is necessary to defend yourself. However, sir, it's just kind of funny how your defense is also supercharging yourself into a god. I'm just saying. It's weird, right? How those just happen to overlap. You fucking jag. Shut up! Oh god, I am so sick of dudes. Honestly. I'm just trying to make myself so ultimately unstoppably powerful because I'm trying to protect you. Go jerk off into a fucking cactus, dude. Like, honestly, I am not interested. And I appreciate that Zelda does not particularly seem... it remains to be seen. She may have been convinced by him. But, so, the dean manages to, get them to notice that book that is supposed to be in the poison room and get these people to open the poison room and let his friends out. Then they get got, or he gets got by defending them and taking down a couple of librarians. They put him in like this weird set of cuffs that has like a thumb lock, so that you can't cast. Which I don't know if we've seen these specific types of cuffs before, but I thought that was a really cool detail. And this is an interesting overlap because later on we find out that the monster and his sister are going to have to go into the poison room. There's a lot of activity in this fucking room this episode. So it turns out, and I have this, there's an interesting moment where Julia, the monster Julia, she is talking about how her brother has sort of gotten comfortable with the humans and begun to care about them, which is so funny because, like, as viewers, it doesn't feel that way. But once you see her, you're like, well, I guess in comparison, but I don't know. And she asks him if he's scared of her. And he's like, why would I have fought so hard to bring you back if I was scared? And I tried to get revenge on your behalf, and I killed everybody that had hurt us. And she's like, yeah, but what about the other ones? Because he says all of them. And she's like, not really, though. And now we're getting to the shit that I care about, because this is what I've been saying. Last episode, we find out, like, they were born these two mistakes that could not be killed. And I'm like, mistakes? What the fuck is your problem? What? Who says? What? And he says, our parents. And she says, they made us, called us mistakes, abandoned us. So what do we do? And he says, I like murder as much as anyone, but I did all of this just to be with you. Can't we just enjoy it for a little while? And she says, that's not what we were made for. And his response is, I'm not terrified of the old gods. It's just, how do you kill an intangible thought creature? Where do you even stab? And she says that they are vulnerable if you can get into their realm, and that she has found a scroll to do that is kept in the poison room. So that's what they're going to try and do. And honestly, there's a big part of me at this point, hearing the cobbled together pieces of the story, that is kind of like, fuck it up. All right, kids, go in there, get that goddamn scroll and kill those old gods. Go ahead. I'm not mad at you. Who cares? Old gods seem to suck. Go at it. Fuck them. I know not of what I speak. This is just my initial impulsive assessment. And then we get them breaking into the library, and it's honestly pretty fucking rad, because they are just so unbothered by everybody who tries to come up against them. They're like bored. It's like they're going through the TSA line. You know, there's no it's just kind of like, yeah, lift my arms. I know. Take off my shoes. Yeah. Can we fucking get this, like, and, so yeah, they get into the poison room and find the scroll. And earlier in the episode, Alice had tried to talk to Sheila and get Sheila to help her, because everybody's lives are at stake here. And Sheila was not cooperative. I gotta be honest, from what we learned of Sheila, this did not feel like her character to me. I do appreciate the line, I know too much about how of fucking a good thing up. And I believe that line. But in terms of, like, not seeing the bigger picture, Sheila was the one who helped Alice see the bigger picture last time. And I just felt like her not being willing to look at that didn't ring totally true to me. But it doesn't matter, because she sees all these librarians being fucking slaughtered by monsters. And she realizes that this shit's a little closer to home than she thought, and she needs help. So she sends a bunny with the monsters in the library message to Alice. And that is what spurs her and Quentin to, going and drinking down a bunch of that magic. And Quentin, when he drinks it, he looks up at her and he gets this glow to his eyes and he says, yeah, I am totally feeling that. And we find out a little bit later that Everett, when he's talking to Zelda, he says that he put a bunch of the magic that he had been storing somewhere near a reservoir and that he needed her help getting it, I think is what he said. I am assuming that this is where he meant, that he has it like stored somewhere. But I mean, I don't know how he got here. I guess the librarians can world hop, right? I assume. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here. So Julia Monster, I just can't get over how much she doesn't look like herself. It's a little subtle thing with the eye makeup. They have it like ringed under her eyes a little bit more so that she looks more like exhausted and a little bit spookier. But it's also the way that she looks, like the way that she holds her face and her eyes. And she is about to kill Dean Fogg in his cell, and he is ready to accept it. Like, it seems that he sort of seems to think this is just what he gets. This is the consequences of what he did to put her in this position. And they get interrupted by Alice and Quentin, who are here with their axes and their bottles. And Quentin and Alice have gotten back together, by the way. I kind of skimmed over that. I don't care. It's fine. Whatever. I'm glad it was just dealt with. But I gotta say, Quentin's look of determination in this moment, with that like strap around him that's got the buckle. Why do buckles make you look tougher? 90s comic drawers would know. But yeah, they make eye contact, and she just says to him, adorable, which I assume is a response to seeing those axes, because I am guessing she knows what they are supposed to be for, and she knows that they are not going to work. But anyway, that is how the episode ends, is her looking at him and saying adorable. And I was just like, I don't like that reaction. I don't like it. So yeah, this was a really good episode, guys. I can't believe the next episode's the finale of the season. Holy shit. I just I feel like this is not a story that wraps up in one more episode. I could be wrong. But if it does, it's going to feel kind of rushed. I don't see being able to avoid that. I don't know. Let's see. So we got season 4, episode 13 will be on, wait a minute. Am I on the Magicians? Yeah. Episode 13. Oh, it's going to be a voyeur episode on the 26th. Oh, you guys are going to hang out with me while I watch it. That's fun. I didn't even notice that. So that'll be Monday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time for those who want to come. So yeah, you guys can come and hang out with me while I watch it, and then I will be recording on it the following day at 6 p.m. Central Time. Season 5, the only episodes that are commissioned are 1 and 2 in June and July. So now that we know that season 5 is available to buy, I can cover it. So if you guys want to continue commissioning season 5, feel free. I can't believe I'm going to be like caught up with the rest of everybody soon. Damn, that's crazy. Michael says Memorial Day. No, Memorial Day is a Monday. This is the 26th, the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So yeah. Anyway, I'm really excited. That'll be fun to see it with you guys. I think that's the first voyeur I've done for Magicians. So cool. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Thank you again to Michael for commissioning that as a voyeur. And I will be seeing you again soon as we watch the finale of season 4 together. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Spoiled Network podcast.